to another episode of Ask Earl Anything. And this week, looks like we have 3 questions this week. Remember, this show is made up of your questions, so if I don't get questions, we don't really have a show. But this week I've got 3 questions, 2 different individuals giving the questions. So we're going to start with one of my new friends, Mike Frazano. And Mike asks a question about drumsticks. He says, "Thanks, Earl. If you were to play Vic Firth drumsticks instead of your favorite Vader model, Los Angeles 5As, what Vic Firth model would it be?" Well, again, let me say this about drumsticks. I love hickory drumsticks. I like Vic Firth drumsticks, but my favorite Vic Firth drumsticks always seem to be the signature models. And I do play these occasionally. This is the Steve Gadd signature model. And I'm going to give you a little history on the Steve Gadd signature model. Back in the late 70s when I was in college, I used to go to a drum shop in New York. It actually probably around 1980. It was a drum shop called the Modern Drum Shop in New York City. And this is right after Frank Ippolito's store, where I bought this drum kit in '79, closed. Frank's shop opened up, and another shop in New York called Drummer's World opened up. And Frank Ippolito's store was the go-to store in New York for a long time, but Joe Casayas' store, the Modern Drum Shop, became probably just as famous as Professional Percussion Center in New York City. And I started going to Joe Casayas' store when I was in this little, it was on like the 2nd or 3rd floor of this building, and they had this little room. And one of the pairs of sticks that Joe had was he had a pair of Steve Gadd sticks from the Yamaha company. When Gadd went to Yamaha for drums, he ended up getting a drumstick made by Yamaha. And the model of that drumstick that Yamaha made ended up being the stick that Vic Firth made for Steve Gadd. And Joe Casayas had a stick at the Modern Drum Shop that was a natural hickory version of the stick that was the exact stick as the Steve Gadd, because he'd pull out the Steve Gadd pair and say, "Check these out, check this stick out," and he would say, "This is the one." And I used the Steve Gadd stick for many years because I liked that rounded tip. Matter of fact, in the Vader models with the rounded tip, I liked the Vader Fusion sticks. For many years I played them. And to be honest, the only reason why I'm not playing Vader Fusions anymore, or the Steve Gadd stick, is because sticks are so expensive. So, why am I bringing this back? This is not one of the sticks from the 80s. I played through all my Gadd sticks from the 80s. I wish I had a pair of those. I think a company called Capella was making those drumsticks in the 80s for a Modern Drum Shop. Somebody can, if somebody knows the answer to that, they can write me in on it. But Capella was a drumstick manufacturer out of Freehold, New Jersey, and I used to buy some Capella sticks too. I had a friend who used to get them directly from the factory because he lived in Hightstown or Englishtown. My friend Scott, he used to live in Englishtown, I believe. But anyhow, it's out near Freehold where Capella was, and he used to get some of those drumsticks. But I found a blank copy of a Steve Gadd stick at Guitar Center. And this stick was actually in a bundled pack of 10 sticks, and I think I bought them for like something ridiculous price, like $10. It was like one of those weekends they were selling stuff off. And I brought them home because I started a drum lesson business last year, and I thought I could sell the kids drumsticks for $5 a pair, not be ripping them off really, because they cost them $10 a pair at Guitar Center, and I could sell them for $5 a pair. Well, needless to say, I haven't sold many pairs of drumsticks, maybe one. But I was playing these, I pulled these sticks out one day and I realized it's the same stick as the Steve Gadd. So these are Steve Gadd second sticks that Guitar Center was selling. And anyhow, they're great. I mean, they're a little bit of a bend, of course, or they're a little bit of weight difference. The Steve Gadd drumstick weighs 50 grams. And what I found with the weight of these sticks was they were somewhere between 52 grams and 35 grams. So there was some inconsistency in the pairs, but I pulled out the best 4 pairs or 5 pairs of the sticks, and the other 5 were all too light for me, but I like around 50 grams. So I think the Vic Firth Gadd sticks are a wonderful stick. all the signature models are wonderful sticks. I've played the Harvey Mason. I've played the Dave Weckl. So I think I would play one of those signature models if money was no object. I would probably play one of those sticks. So anyhow, Mike, I hope that answers your question. The next question comes from 2112 Drums, and he asked two questions. So I'm going to answer the first question, which is a more technical question first. He asked me what the size of the little Gretsch kit bass drum was, the little kit I was on last week, which is my 18-inch, 14 by 18 Gretsch bass drum. And then he asked me what heads I had on that kit. And the heads on that kit right now are Remo Ambassadors on the tops, and I've got a clear EMAD 1, I think it's a 1, not a 2, EMAD for the bass drum head. And right now I've got a white Gretsch logo head. For a while I had an Aquarian modern vintage head on the front. But that's the head combination on that kit. The bottom heads are clear Ambassadors. So for the 10, the 12, and the 14-inch tom, I've got a coated Ambassador on the top. Of course, snare drums are always different with the kit, so I'm not talking snares, just tom heads. So I'm going with Remo coated Ambassadors on that kit right now. This kit has got coated Emperors on it, with a clear Ambassador on the bottom. For many years I would buy clear Ambassadors for bottom heads and use Emperors on the top. That combination kind of worked for me for many years. I am looking at changing heads on this drum set, and one of the head combinations that I know would kind of work is the vintage Ambassador heads, coated vintage Ambassador heads. I'm a big fan of coated heads. If I'm going to buy a clear head, I'd probably buy pinstripes for these drums, because pins really sound nice on these drums. But I'm kind of a coated guy. I've always liked coated heads. I like playing brushes, so coated heads are where I default to. So the last question on Ask Earl Anything comes from 2112 Drums. And he said, "Hello Earl, I'm planning to start a YouTube drumming channel. What tips, if any, could you give me?" Now that's an awesome question, and that's why I decided to do Ask Earl Anything today on Thursday with only 3 questions, because I think this question could take almost 10 minutes possibly, so we'll see how long it takes. I would say this: if you're planning on starting a YouTube channel, you have to do it for the right reasons. That's the first thing. 10 years ago when people started YouTube channels, they didn't know what they were going to get. And a lot of guys hit gold with it. I mean, there's a couple guys out there that's been around for a while. Your Steve Taylor's, I think he's one of them, Rob Drums. There's a couple guys that have been around for a long time, and I think they've made some money off of it. You know, Bonzolium's another guy. He's got like 43,000 subscribers, you know. He's put very little into his channel, by the way, Bonzolium. He's down in his basement. I think he finally invested in a board and a mic to go to the camera. When he started, it was just the camera mic. He didn't know if it was on or off half the time, and he would put them out just as raw as possible. It was kind of funny watching some of his early videos, if you go back 4 or 5 years ago. Video production's become really top-notch for a lot of guys, and some guys are really good with video production. And I would say, if on the video production end, I'm not on the top end of that. But for drum covers, I think the most important thing is audio. So if I was starting a channel, like I was, and I did, I think the most important thing is to have a good set of mics with a good audio interface and a good DAW. So for me, it's a Mac with Logic, PreSonus 24x4x2, mixing board audio interface. I've got some boutique mic pre's, 7-circle audio. I've got a decent array of microphones. Now, I've had a recording studio for almost 20 years. So a lot of my stuff I've collected over the 20 years. So that's a big part of my stuff. My sound today is the equipment I've acquired over all these years. So that's initial outlay. So if you're going to start a YouTube channel, you need at least an audio interface, a computer, a decent mic kit, you know, 4 or 5 microphones. You should have a set of overheads, tom mics, kick and snare. So you're looking at right there, you're looking at costing you somewhere in the neighborhood of $2,000 to $3,000 or more, depending on what you want to do. Okay, that's the starting point. Then you need a decent camera, okay, and then you need a decent type of program to edit your movies in, your video in. So when you buy a Mac, you get iMovie. I've been using iMovie for all my videos from day one. You could do this with GarageBand if you bought a Mac. You don't have to have Logic, but Logic's nice. A decent audio interface for drums to, you're looking at $500-600 for that. It'll actually have the mic inputs for drums. So Mac, $1,200, $2,000. You're at $2,000, and then the mic kit is around $400 or $500. $2,500 we're looking at to start the audio side of it. The other thing is you need a decent room. And why do I say that? Because if you're micing in a big lively room, your drums are going to sound like Dookie. That's just the way it is. And so you got to have a decent room to record in. All right. You have to know how to tune your drums. You have to know how to mic your drums. Now, there are guys that go E-drums, and I'm not a fan of E-drums, okay, but there are some guys that do some really cool stuff with E-drums, so check those guys' channels out. But the truth of the matter is the outlay for an E-drum kit is more money than the outlay for a normal regular drum kit. So, unless you're going to get a really budget level E-drum kit, and some of those don't really sound all that good. To be honest, the sounds aren't that good. Now you can always MIDI to different sounds, so there's lots of options. So I say it's camera, editing program, audio program, decent mics, decent audio interface, computer. That's your starting point for starting a channel. So there is some initial outlay. The next thing is why you're doing it. Okay? Are you doing it for your creativity? Are you doing it to be famous? Are you doing it to just because you want to do it? Have fun? See, I started doing it for fun. Almost 10 years ago, somebody said to me, my friend Ken Burton said, you should start a YouTube channel. Get a camera and start a YouTube channel. That was probably about 7-8 years ago, but it took me a couple years to get one. And when I finally got a camera in 2012, I started goofing around with it. Or 2010, I got my first Droid phone. That was terrible. I did some terrible stuff with the Droid phone. I think I've even scrapped those videos. They're kind of like, they're just there somewhere. They're hidden. You can't get to them anymore. But by the time I got my Zoom camera, I was trying some different things. Syncing audio in Logic. Not the best place to sync audio, by the way. It's better to sync in iMovie. I've learned that. It took me last year to figure that out. To be honest, I was still syncing video in Logic for a long time, and it's hard to line it up because you got to basically move your whole project as one piece, multi-track, back to lock it up with your camera. It was a lot harder than iMovie. So I learned a lot. I learned a lot about video and audio production, but I was doing it for fun. And the reason why I like putting the videos up for me was to watch myself. I actually like watching myself play drums. I learned things about my playing. So all I can say to you is if you're doing it for the right reasons, it's fun. If you're doing it to make money, I don't see there's no place to make money anymore. Unless by some stretch of the imagination you get your cat in your video and somebody likes whatever you did to your cat. You hit the bass drum and it jumped off the ceiling and landed on the foam and got stuck to it or something, and it gets picked up by the evening news, you know what I mean? And you've already got 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 hours of viewing time on your channel. So you got to be in the game for a year to get 4,000 hours of viewing time almost. And you've got to have 1,000 subscribers to start monetizing your videos. So that cat video jumping because you hit your drum, that day is gone. There was a day they were paying you for that. If you're the guy with the crazy twirling the sticks, everybody seen that video? Or the drummer, the Christian drummer playing Oceans in a church on an E-kit. They posted that video. They made 10 million views. They made some money off that video. Okay? But today you can't put a video up like that, so you're not doing it for the money anymore. If you're doing it for the product endorsements, you better be a guy that's got 60,000 subs, 30,000 subs. you better be a player too, because if you're not a player, they're not going to give you an endorsement, even if you do have 30,000 subs. I mean, Bonzolium talks to all these manufacturers. He can't seem to get anything. He's got 40,000 subscribers. Now, there are ways to make money with YouTube. There's like, you can basically take a product like Piesty. If I work a deal out with Piesty, when I feature their cymbals, they, you know, I put a link in my description, and I basically say, here, you can buy the 16-inch thin 2002 Crash, you know, thin Crash for, you know, $218 at, you know, Musician's Friend. Boom. You know, I'm maybe making money if somebody clicks on it. But again, you've got to really be into it to be doing that kind of stuff. I do a drum channel for fun, and that's what drives me. And the other thing that's driving me right now is I have the time to do it. I'm not sacrificing time with my kids or my wife or my job or anything. I'm basically having fun with it because this is my downtime. I can come in here at night or midday at lunchtime for an hour and just kick around and make a video quick. You know, that's what I do. Weekends I can make 5 videos. So that's what I do, and I have a lot of fun with it. So all I can say to you is, this YouTube drumming channel thing, you need some good equipment, you need a decent video camera. The better your video camera, the better. I have a DSLR, that's my main camera. You buy a lot of cheap cameras, they don't really look that good. Outdated, 5 years ago, outdated cameras don't really work. You need to be trying to get a current camera if possible, or last year's model. And do it for the fun. Okay? You do it for the fun. And if you're doing it for the fun, you'll learn a lot. You meet a lot of cool people. You might even start a show like this and have people follow you and watch it. You know, I'm always shocked when I get 100 people watching my show or 150 people watching this show. So, anyhow, thanks for watching Ask Earl Anything. Remember, your questions make the show. And I hope to see you next time. Hope to get a lot of questions for next week's show. Have a great day, man. Bye.